I'm Bernice Bush, and my family started attending Fellowship Missionary Church in early 1992. This is the room where our family worshiped when we first came to Fellowship, and actually this is where we used to sit. There was a railing right here, and we used to sit right here and watch what happened back there. We would come through this door, right through here, and we would come right up here and participate in what happened back there. At the end of each service, Pastor Dave would stand and shake everybody's hand, and I was always so amazed that he remembered everybody's name. But we've outgrown that. We came to this church to visit because we had come from a congregation that was pretty sound doctrinally, and then at some point there was a breakdown in the leadership, and that caused us to start visiting other churches, and we came to visit and stayed. We felt that the adjustments that we had to make in terms of the type of preaching or singing that we were accustomed to, that we could go and get that at any time, but that our children would never be the age that they are or were at that time. And it was really important to us that they get some sound biblical teaching and that they were in a very positive environment. So initially we stayed because of our children. We were well received. However, there were people who actually said to us, "We're just wondering why you're here because we're not a black church." I don't know if you've ever had a moment where on the outside you said, okay, and on the inside you said, "Are you serious? You gotta be kidding me. I can't believe you're asking me that question." That's what I really thought inside. But on the outside, I responded, "Well, you are the church. So we're here because this is where God told us we need to be, and this is where we will stay until He says otherwise."
As we walked in, there was just a horde of people, all, sardined into that one spot. And I can remember going upstairs into the very first classroom on the left. And yeah, there was a lot of salt, not a lot of pepper up there. Yeah, so I mean, there weren't a lot of faces that looked like mine. In fact, there were none that looked like mine in regards to pigmentation. And so I can remember vividly me and my sister complaining in the back seat of the car, going back down the street to Crown Colony where I grew up at. I can remember we asked my parents maybe the first or second time, like, why?
I was not thinking I'm on a mission, I'm going to expand and I'm going to break into this congregation and teach them what it is to be a black person. It was just, we were going to a church, and I didn't think of it as a black church or a white congregation or a black congregation, because we never raised them to think that way.
My parents were, first of all, hardworking. They're overcomers. They've set a great example at an early age for me and my siblings in many different regards, but one of them was the importance of understanding our identity and who we are. I was a child of God, and I could stand up for myself, and I could be who I was called to be and raised to be, no matter the setting. I met Geoff like that first couple of weeks when I was here. He's probably the longest withstanding friend that I've had. That's a pretty cool thing, and I think when I was able to acclimate myself into the environment, acceptance started to happen. And I'm thankful that I was raised up with a lot of children that are now adults, obviously my age, that we just came up together in this church and we didn't see any hue or pigmentation issues with one another. And I think that's a testament probably to their folks as well, because their folks raised them up to see ourselves as one in Christ and not different because we look different.
I was born Bernice Bennett, and I grew up in Uniontown, Alabama. My father was a sharecropper. We picked cotton. We were poor, but we didn't know how poor we were because we were so rich. We had this very small town, and I really can't say what the population was, but we had 2 high schools and 2 elementary schools. The segregation as far as the water fountains, the schools, the restrooms, shopping, doctor's offices, movie theaters. I can remember being a little girl having to go into the back of the theater and sit in the balcony when I went to the movies with my sisters. The doctor that we went to had two waiting rooms. There was one where the blacks entered, and there was one where everyone else entered. And it didn't matter how sick you were, unless you were dying, You could get there really early in the morning and not see the doctor until late in the afternoon because he would wait on all his white patients first. It was my mom because of her strength and some of the things that I saw her persevere through. She had a tough, strong, yet gentle spirit. We were in this little town where I grew up, and I had to use the restroom. And we went in this department store and they had a restroom, but it was white only. And the lady told us we could not use the restroom. And my mom said, "My little girl has to go to the restroom. We're going in." And we went in, and they didn't stop us. I still remember that even though she knew she could have possibly gotten in trouble or they could have called the sheriff, she didn't care about that. She cared about me. Seeing how much she nurtured and cared for us and always wanted the best for us, that's a part of her that I take with me, or took with me with my children, is that I always wanted the best for them, and I always wanted them to know that they were important and that they were valued and that they were not less than anyone. I would ask this question, and I don't know if it'll make this, but I would just ask this question. How many people watching this, I would say how many people who are not of color listening to me would say today, I'm going to walk into a room of 100 plus people of color because I want to be a part of what they're offering. And it doesn't matter if I'm well received or not, I'm going to stay there and contribute. But walk in and say, I want what you have and I want to be a part of it because I know that this is where I belong. And for me as a woman of color or a black woman, that's been my life. If we as Christians were to accept what Jesus said as far as the greatest commandment, love. It's easy to love people who look like you, who act like you, who like all the things that you like, and the people that love you. But he said, Jesus said, I say love your enemies. And being a part of this congregation, ultimately, years later, through the friendships that were developed, got me through some really tough times in my life, and even leading up to those times in my children and so on and so forth. So now I know why that piece was there. It's like, just keep going back, no matter what is said, no matter what you hear, just ignore it because I have you there for a reason.